What if I told you the Blue Jays are in on a pitcher nobody saw them targeting? A report just surfaced from an overseas insider linking Toronto to a massive free agent arm, and this could completely shift how the next 48 hours of this offseason unfolds. We're breaking down everything you need to know about this bombshell development, plus critical updates on the bullpen situation, Kyle Tucker trade rumors, and whether a certain prospect could crack the opening day roster. Before we jump in, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Your support has been incredible, and I'm committed to bringing you daily Blue Jays content even though I'm currently on vacation, so excuse the setup. A new report has emerged that's turning heads across baseball. According to a Japanese insider, the Blue Jays are among the teams showing serious interest in Roki Sasaki. Now, before you dismiss this as typical Scott Boras tactics to drive up the price, hear me out. This report specifically mentions that while Toronto is interested, they're being cautious about committing massive, long-term money. That hesitation makes sense when you consider how much they already have invested in starting pitching. But here's where it gets interesting. The deadline for Sasaki to sign is Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. That's less than 72 hours away. Multiple sources are indicating the White Sox and Red Sox are considered frontrunners right now, but the Jays being in the mix at all is fascinating. For those unfamiliar with Sasaki, we're talking about a 27-year-old pitcher who posted an absurd 1.92 ERA over 163 innings. His arsenal draws comparisons to Max Scherzer in terms of how he deploys his pitches. He's fastball slider dominant, with reports suggesting he attacks righties relentlessly with those two pitches, making up over 90% of what he throws against right-handed batters. His fastball sits in the upper 90s and can touch triple digits. Some scouts have compared his heater to what Joe Ryan brings, which is elite swing and miss stuff. Everything about his profile screams future frontline starter at the major league level. But, and this is crucial, we've seen international stars come over and dominate like Yoshinobu Yamamoto and obviously Shohei Ohtani, but there's always inherent risk when a pitcher hasn't faced MLB competition. So why would the Blue Jays even be considering this when they just signed Dylan Cease and already have a rotation featuring Jose Berrios, Kevin Gausman, Bowden Francis, Shane Bieber, and others? Think about it from a strategic standpoint. Berrios has an option after this season. Gausman is in the final year of his contract. They're trying to position themselves for sustained success, not just a one-year window. If they land Sasaki, they could experiment with a six-man rotation to manage workloads, keep everyone fresh, and potentially extend careers. Given their philosophy of valuing durability, which we clearly saw with the Cease acquisition, adding another controllable arm with elite upside makes logical sense. Cease gives you 30 starts and 200 innings year after year. If Sasaki can provide even close to that level of consistency with higher strikeout upside, you've created one of the most formidable rotations in baseball. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room. There are plenty of people saying this is just Boras leaking Toronto's name to create leverage and drive up offers. That's absolutely possible, and frankly, it's a play we've seen before. The challenge impossible meme about Boras, including the Blue Jays for players they're not seriously pursuing, is making the rounds for good reason. But here's my counter-argument. If teams are conducting meetings with Sasaki right now and reports confirm those meetings are ongoing, then there's at least legitimate exploratory interest from Toronto's side. The report specifically states they haven't offered concrete terms yet, which tracks with their cautious approach. They're doing their homework, assessing the risk versus reward, and trying to determine if the investment makes sense given their current payroll structure and organizational needs. One detail from the reporting that stands out is how they're hesitant about large-scale long-term deals for pitchers coming from overseas who haven't proven themselves in MLB. That's smart organizational thinking. You don't want to be the team that hands out a massive contract based on international numbers only to watch it blow up in your face. But Sasaki isn't just some unknown commodity. There's extensive scouting data, video breakdowns, and analysis suggesting he's the real deal. An article that came out earlier this offseason did a deep dive into his mechanics, pitch mix, and how his stuff translates. The consensus among talent evaluators is this kid can pitch at the highest level immediately. Let's shift gears to the bullpen situation because there have been significant developments. Kirby Yates just signed with the Angels, which takes another name off the board. I covered Yates in a previous video as someone the Jays could target as a reclamation project, similar to past attempts that didn't quite pan out. With him gone, let's look at who's still available. Sir Anthony Dominguez would be a fantastic addition if the Jays could bring him back. Justin Wilson is a lefty I'm very high on. Danny Coulomb represents another solid southpaw option. Andrew Chafin has history with Toronto from way back. There are still plenty of quality relievers on the market, and with less than 48 hours until we ring in the new year, I expect a flurry of signings in the coming days. The big fish relievers are still out there. The market is moving, but it hasn't exploded yet. Hunter Harvey signed back on December 27th. Yates went last night. The dominoes are starting to fall. What I'm hearing through various channels and reports circulating online is that we might get clarity on both the Nolan Arenado trade situation and Kyle Tucker in the very near future. Some rumblings suggest the Arenado market could resolve before Tucker, which would be interesting given how much speculation has surrounded both situations. Before I wrap up, I want to talk about Ricky Tiedemann. This is a name that keeps coming up in discussions about how the Blue Jays can address their needs internally rather than through external additions. Tiedemann has the stuff to be a dominant reliever if Toronto decides to use him in that role out of spring training. He throws upper 90s gas with a wipeout slider that can absolutely torture hitters. If the Jays aren't going to sign a high-profile lefty reliever, they need someone beyond Brendan Little and Mason Fluharty to provide depth from the left side. Tiedemann could be that weapon. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think Ricky Tiedemann should get a shot at the opening day roster? Where do you see him fitting into the